what did you make of it today? Brendan Shanahan's comments, the play-by-play of the negotiation from last September to where we are today.
I guess I found it pretty bizarre. But first of all, I think one thing you have to understand when you're a guy once told me that when you put your hand in a bucket of water and the hole that's left there when you take it out is how indispensable you are. And when you're a general manager in the NHL and your team just got beat out and you go up to the podium and say you're not sure you still want the job, that just doesn't happen. There's 30 of these jobs in the world, and especially one as good as the Toronto Maple Leafs job. So when I heard him say that the other day, that he wanted time, he didn't know if he wanted to come back, I couldn't believe what I was listening. And I understand the pressure of the job. I understand how tough it is. You just don't say that when you've just been beaten out in front of your players and everybody in your organization. You just don't say it. And Brendan basically said today it changed his mind when he heard that. So I'm not surprised. But I mean, what do you say? And then you come back and say, well, no, I really want the job, and this is what I want for a salary. No, it doesn't fly. Sorry.
Well, actually,
too many guys looking for the job.
Yeah, well, the other part, Doug, is you mentioned the first part, but I really want the job was the third part. The second part about a new offer being presented. And, we said, Brendan, we thought he'd be close to the vest, but he just wanted to enlighten all the details from his point of view. And it sounded like at that point when he came back where his agent did anyway, representative, with a new proposal, that was the day the music really died.
Yeah, 100%. So, it's funny when you're a GM in the NHL and you're negotiating with your president or your owner, it's a different negotiation. And Gord, you know that. It's not like a coach negotiation. It's not like a director of amateur scouting negotiation or a player negotiation. You're supposed to be a team, and you're supposed to have a good feel and a good vibe as to what the parameters are and where we're going here. And, he made an offer early in March. Didn't he say they started to talk in March?
Yes.
So, to me, it doesn't, it's just bizarre. But let me just give you a little story here. 10 years ago, I get a call from a friend of mine saying Kyle Dubas wants to have lunch with me. That's just after, when I was working for Sportsnet. Kyle Dubas was a GM in Sault Ste. Marie. Said he wanted to meet with me for lunch. Could I have lunch with him? So I did. I didn't know the kid, never met him before in my life. And he talked to me, said he wanted to talk to me because he felt his owners in Sault Ste. Marie were ready to fire him. And he wanted advice from me as to how to deal with his owners when your job's on the line. And he knew I had a lot of experience with that, I guess. So we spent an hour and a half with him. I spent an hour and a half with him, talked to him about, strategies to try to work with your owners and make sure that you survived as best you could. And that was 10 years ago or maybe a little longer than that. And it was Greg Millen who was sitting with me in the meeting because they were friends at that time. So, this isn't just new. This is when you're a GM in the NHL and your team's you think your players want to hear that, well, I'm not sure if I really want to be back. I know, I understand the stress and the pressure and everything that goes with it, but you just can't say that to your fan base and to your owners and to everybody else. You can think it, you can tell your boss out one-on-one, but you don't say it in the press conference. I guarantee you that. It sends the wrong message. So, and you know what? I like Kyle. I think he's done a decent job. I mean, he's been told for 10 years or less, I guess, that you can't build a winner when you've got $45 million tied up in 4 players. How many times has that been said? Not a good enough goaltending, not a good enough blue line, not good enough depth guys, because it's unbelievably hard to do it. And that's what he attempted to do about 3 different times with a different group, and it didn't work.
We're talking to Doug.
A lot of times because he didn't have a good enough goalie.
We're talking to Doug MacLean, former NHL president, GM, and head coach. Mac, Brendan Shanahan, you watch him. He's a Hall of Famer, Stanley Cup champion. Not too many things he's done in his life, have gone poorly or sideways, right? If you go back almost 10 years ago, he goes and finds Kyle Dubas. Gord articulated earlier, that how that relationship kind of started. He's early in his tenure as a president. He goes out of his way, man. It's a real wow moment that you would go make this guy.
Cold calls him.
You go hire this guy when nobody else would touch him with a 10-foot pole. 9 years later, it comes to this. How would Brendan Shanahan be feeling right now?
Well, you know what? I think he would be disappointed because, I mean, obviously he's got to really respect and like Kyle Dubas, and that's typically what happens when you are in the trenches with somebody for a long time. Yeah, guys get fired, but guys still stay friends. But I'll tell you what, I really believe the commentary at the press conference threw Brendan for a loop. Like, I listened to Kenny Holland the other day, who's won a few Stanley Cups, and I listened to him talk about how devastated he was about losing, how devastated his players were about losing, and we're going to grind it out and try to make this work. We're going to work today. The players are going to work today. I'm going to work today. We're going to go and we're going to grind it out and try to figure this out. That was their message. That wasn't the message that came out of Toronto. So, yeah, Brendan would be disappointed. But Brendan's a guy that's been around Stanley Cup winners in Detroit with guys that go through the wall. And when he heard those comments the other day, I can't believe. I think it threw him for a loop. I really do. I think it was a factor in today. I think it was more of a factor than a negotiation, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, so Doug, the other thing, and you know as well as anybody about, just talking earlier with Kyper and Sammy about it, that, okay, we know there's serious ramifications for flat-out tampering, but people do know the skinny what's going on, okay? And so, a lot of people talked up Kyle that as a unrestricted free agent, basically, he would be a hot commodity. In what do you think in his mind that he felt there was, even though he said he wasn't going to pop up somewhere else, he just wanted to stay in Toronto, but the figure he felt he would get somewhere else, that all of a sudden he got in his mind that I'm going to try to play this out and get that figure here, and it backfired.
Well, I think it did. And, listen, I get that, maybe Pittsburgh have talked, there's been conversations. I don't know with Kyle, but I guarantee his agents talk to people. I don't know who he's talked to, but he's certainly got a vibe. But, this is the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the greatest hockey town, one of the greatest hockey towns in the world, and an organization with a history. Yeah, I know they haven't won. I get all the buts, but it's still the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, it's exciting. If you want to go to Pittsburgh and do a total 100% rebuild with Malkin, you got a big four there, but they're 35 to 40. Big difference. That's a big rebuild. That's a tough job. And, maybe he wants to do that. I don't know. But I think he really wanted to stay, and he got caught. I think he got caught at the end of the day. I really do.